Internet amigos, hola, Internet amigos. What is the date today? It is Sunday, 21st of December, 11:08 a.m. in hermoso día Querétaro, Mexico. Querétaro, Mexico, and it looks like on Domingo, this day, the pollution is way down, thank God. I want to talk about Chabad Lubavitch and Jewish organized crime, how it's even in bikie gangs. Even in bikie gangs. Oh, by the way, this year, Geopolitics and Empire is quite good. Give them a thumbs up and join. They have some good posts, some reasonable posts. Let's now go to my recent post where we talk about Swiss Bikies, the head of the Hells Angels. Swiss chapter of the Hells Angels is at the Wailing Wall, and no, it is not AI. This is Miriam K. Griggs. How K. Griggs told us that the motorcycle gentlemen clubs, and they were heavily involved in, of course, drug trafficking, but also the weapons trade coming down through Greece, Israel. We'll talk about it. Okie doke. This is a picture of, that is the head of the Hell's Chapter outlet from Switzerland at the Wailing Wall. It's not AI. This photo is about 15 years old. Now, these same Chabad people, Hasidim, but that guy's Chabad as well. I mean, we're going to ask questions anyway. So these are the same people. There's Nachum Goldberg. He wasn't Chabad. I don't think he was Chabad. He was in Melbourne. He might have been, but he was one of the ultra-Orthodox Hasidim. And they say he laundered up to 170 million Australian dollars. Diamond Joe Goodnick was involved behind the scenes, and how they were transferring that to Likud and Ariel Sharon. So this is back in the 90s. All normal. All that really hardcore organised crime is out of Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. These were the friends of Julian Assange. I mean, remember Phoenix, the other guy? Well, he was Chabad, and he was the one coordinating with an East German Stasi operative, went by the name Pengo. This was all in documentaries, which everyone has forgotten about Assange. When they were hacking the Pentagon and NASA, they were in touch with East German Stasi, of course, passing it on to Russian GRU, KGB. Now, when Assange was busted and went to the magistrate's court, minor court, you can't go to jail in the magistrate's court. The maximum you can get in the magistrate's court in Australia, minor court matter, is 3 years, and you'd have to piss on the judge's face, take a dump on his desk, punch the judge in the face to go to jail. It's always a fine. Anyway, he goes there at much fanfare, and he's, oh my God, what do I do if I go to jail? He was never going to jail. You're in the magistrate's court. Okay? So it's not a felony. He wasn't charged with a felony. But he's breaking into NASA and the Pentagon whilst hanging out with Chabad, who's in touch with Pengo, an East German Stasi asset, who once Assange was convicted in the magistrate's courts, was found dead in an East German Black Forest. His throat had been cut and he'd been set on fire. Who is Pengo, Julian? Might want to remember that, how long he's been working with Russians. For many of you, that's not a problem. Well, when you understand that Vladimir Putin is not anti-globalist, but has been best friends with Klaus Schwab, Henry Kissinger, Yevgeny Primakov for 30 years, you clearly know he's not an anti-globalist. He is one of them. He is, in fact, a German Rothschild, French Rothschild intelligence asset. That's why he's hanging around with Gerhard Schroeder, the former Chancellor of Germany. And he was besties. He's like a brother-sister relationship with Angela Merkel. All right, and they always used to he'd tease her all the time because they were all old friends. You know the pictures. I guess I've got to get those pictures up. I can't be bothered. It's not about that, but you can look up Gerhard Schroeder and Vladimir Putin, knock yourself out, and then you'll see pictures of Gerhard Schroeder working directly as an asset of Evelyn the Rothschild. But why let the truth get in the way of good Russian-Israeli drug money? Isn't that right, Ryan Dawson and the rest of you? So there's Nachum Goldberg in Melbourne. Now, Chief Rabbi of Russia, Beryl Lazar, that is, of course, the Chief Rabbi, but he also happens to be Chabad Lubavitch. This is the Oxford Chabad Society serving Oxford Jewish students. Now, who else was at that? Oh, guest of honor, the Honourable Mr. Nathaniel Rothschild. My only qualifications for speaking tonight is that I am very good friends with Rabbi Lazar. I'm sure there's nothing to see here. Rothschild, direct descendant of Evelyn de Rothschild, Lord Jacob Rothschild, is hanging around with the Russian chief rabbi, Chabad Lubavitch. Nothing to see here. I'm very good friends with, I'm getting the pen out, look at, with Rabbi Lazar. Oh, now I've got the pen. I thank Elliot Shear for sponsoring this event. I've really got my English accent going well now. For sponsoring this event, and I thank my friend and business partner, David Slager, for sponsoring this center and making it a reality. Getting a bit excited. I've been going to Russia since 1992, when I was still a student at Oxford. When I began visiting Russia regularly around 2001, I didn't have much idea about the resurgence of Jewish life. However, I met Rabbi Lazar in Switzerland at the World Economic Forum in Davos, and I was struck by watching this figure, and we eventually connected and started talking, and from there began a friendship, and I started visiting his center in Russia many times a year. No wonder the Russian oligarchs, including Putin, have all their money in London banks. London, Stan. Here's a picture of Nathaniel. For me, it was an incredible experience to watch it grow, and this effort in this day, it has over 140,000 members, serves over 1,000 meals a day, and helps 15,000 elderly people. No, they're Jewish elderly people. They don't help ordinary Russians. It is a place where Jews and non-Jews, no, just Jews visit there. Non-Jews don't visit there unless there's someone they want to use. It has a synagogue, swimming pool, and the mikveh baths for the little boys, of course. And there is work afoot to build a Jewish museum. At the same time, Rabbi Lazar is a great unifying force in Russia. I have met some important people at his center, including a leading Muslim businessman in Russia, who is now a close friend. Really good, tell you. I have only wonderful things to say, and I'm very honored to introduce him here tonight. Yes, the head of the Russian-Israeli mafia, drug money laundering, blood diamonds, drug trafficking, human organ trafficking, sex slave trafficking, Nathaniel Rothschild. Oh, jolly good, tally-ho. And there is the long Oxford Society post. So just that one photo, linked with that photo, linked with that photo, linked with that photo. Now, let's read this little article, shall we? Let's read this little article. How do I get back? Oh, Lord have mercy. How do I get back? Right, let's read it. Oh, look, an Orthodox Jewish Swiss chapter of the Hells Angels. No, it's not AI. It reminds me of God's garbage bikies. I'm going to give you some good gossip. I used to know some very interesting people back in Perth, Western Australia. Let's not have red, let's have white. Damn it, I want my pen. I would absolutely do ads for Samsung if you just got a little bit more of a powerful chip to match the M4, M5, if only. There we go. Put my pretty little dots there. Okay. It reminds me of God's garbage bikies, based on the south coast of Western Australia, all Jews or Hebrew Catholics, as the Bairstow family like to be known. I knew them well. The Club Deroes, let's talk about this gang. I knew someone who was a nominee to join them. And I said, how interesting. Do you know who they are? This guy was of German descent. And he told me the story. He was taken to Melbourne to a very rich giant mansion with the head of the club, who all have Star of David's tattooed on the inside of their arms, just like the Waffen SS had their inside of their arms tattooed with their blood type. And got Star of David's. They are absolutely untouchable, and we'll get onto that. Not a very big gang, 40, 50 members. That was back then. I don't know what they are now. But the cops would never touch them, because that's who runs Western Australia. So the Club Deroes. Listen to this. A small bikie gang out of Kalgoorlie, Western Australia. I used to work there many, many years ago. I was 18, 19, 20, doing gold assaying. This has got the largest open gold mine in the world, the Super Pit. It's a huge gold mining center. Just 40 of them. Back in the day, they stole raw gold off gold mines and sold it to Chabad Lubavitch in Melbourne, Victoria, state of Australia. And you'll get the links in with blood diamonds, drug money laundering, the Lebanese Catholics and Lebanese Muslims who love Muslims so much they do regular drug deals and blood diamonds to Dubai with Chabad Lubavitch. Despite their small status, they were untouchable and heavily protected by West Australian police. Andrew Edhouse killed Mark Chabrier with an SKK assault rifle while travelling in his car on his way to work, October the 4th, 1998. Remember it well. This is Perth, Western Australia. A suburb called Welshpool. I remember it well. Everyone knew who did it, except the WA police, who have no trouble planting evidence on people they don't like, and they regularly plant evidence on people like routinely. Andrew Edhouse went to court but was acquitted by one of Western Australia's classic rigged juries. He also murdered Lisa Govan, a 28-year-old woman in Kalgoorlie, Western Australia. But again, he always seems to get away with it. He stomped on her head, decided off his head on meth and coke to just stomp on her head and kill her. Then they threw her body down her. Again, no evidence, not a problem. No conviction. Recently, 2025, a few months ago, they had an open ruling. They had an inquiry into her death. He just came and appeared and, walked away. He's fine. He's fine. He's not untouchable because they're all involved with Chabad Lubavitch. But again, he always seems to get away. A recent ruling. Let's get this up full screen. Oh, whoops. A recent ruling. Where are we? A recent ruling by a coronial inquest 2025 found she was dead, but her body was never found. Again, the WA police, renowned for fitting people up they don't like, failed yet again. What is the magical protection that covers the club Deroes? Anyone have any idea what that might be? A club full of self-identifying Jews with Star of Davids tattooed on the inside of their arms, who met top-level Orthodox Jewish QCs in Melbourne mansions. I know that. I met the guy and talked to him. He was so disgusted he backed out because he was of German descent. Let's just say a little Nazi leaning, just a little bit fond of Adolf Hitler. Didn't like the fact he was joining a club that was full of Jews and Orthodox Jews at that. Anyway, can anyone guess why it is the Club Deroes get away with so much? And why is the same organised crime filth of Chabad Lubavitch roaming around the White House, giving orders and feeling totally invulnerable? Why is Trump surrounded by enemies who swear he must be killed? We must deal with the fascist Trump. Oh my God, what are we going to do? Yet AOC and the Mod Squad, sworn to his destruction, can't seem to hone in on his close relationship to a Jewish organised crime cult out of Russia, Ukraine, involved in drugs, drug money laundering, diamonds, sex slave trade, human organ trade, and the intelligence gathering with an extremely close relationship to Nathaniel Rothschild and the Oxford Group. How do these self-evident demons walk between the raindrops while goys sell swag online, whining about them? Who controls all organised crime, drug trafficking, money laundering with an army of filthy goy rats at their disposal? And they control the Mexican trade as well. But just for fun, old chaps, let's get up Schroeder and Putin, shall we? One big happy family, indeed. Indeed, ladies and gentlemen. There is Gerhard Schroeder, former Chancellor of Germany, Frankfurt School. There he is with Evelyn de Rothschild, part of the Rothschild Group. Besties with Putin. They are renowned. You never see it talked about. I want you to imagine the control of the internet, how controlled and narrative bound it really is. How they trickle down economics. They trickle down the data they want discussed and they put it through what they usually do is they put it through like the left-wing press, the right-wing press, so Fox News, MSNBC, and then all the alt media come along and squabble quack, 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 about that issue. So the issue is fed to them by the mainstream media in the begin with, which is the giant corporate Department of Defense media setup, isn't it? And you can see how that silliness works. And they say things like, Nick Fuentes, the most cancelled man in America, while he's literally all over the internet, owns his home, $1.8 million house, and has $500,000 in cash in his account, which was given back to him after January the 6th because he's a vile, disgusting closet homosexual piece of garbage. So all the Putin boys will never, Ryan Dawson's not going to tell you about this because the deal was, of course, he's not a Slavic/Russian nationalist. Putin is an agent and an asset of Rothschild. That's what he is. And we can scroll along, la la la, friends forever, besties forever. There we go. And there he is with good old, oh my God, I've forgotten his name. How could I forget that? President Mitterrand of France, Gerhard Schroeder, three princes lose an empire, all involved with Rothschild. Remember, the EU was going to use high technology in the EU, combine it with Russian raw resources. This is Rothschild, okay? City of London, Paris, France, Frankfurt, Germany, Geneva, Switzerland, Basel, Switzerland, Bank of International Settlements, Rothschild, the Hofjuden, 13 families of Europe. They would then combine Eurasia, the raw resources of Russia, with their asset Vladimir Putin and their other asset Xi Jinping as the manufacturing base. And they would say, thanks, America, you can fuck off now out of the Middle East and out of Eurasia, and we take over the world. Remember, who rules Eurasia? controls the world. And that's all Rothschild. It's not going to be a Russian nationalist or a Chinese nationalist or a French nationalist or a German nationalist. It's going to be Rothschild. The only question to ask good old Donald Trump, who was in on the scam, well, he wasn't in on it, he's just an idiot. They were using him. Kissinger was, of course, running them all. Good old Kissinger, was that he was meant to withdraw everybody. Now they have him. He's now under the control of the Skull and Bones US elites boys, the Waspy boys, the old James Angleton and so on and so forth. That old crew, for good or ill. And now you see J.D. Vance saying, well, the enemy is actually Europe. And that is correct. But I've got a better idea. Instead of torturing the EU, which is quite possibly what you're going to do, deindustrialize the EU and get a brain drain of their best and brightest, all the best and brightest will get visas to the US. Why don't you free the Europeans and the Russians and the Chinese from the fucking parasite, and the Middle East from the parasite, and Africa from the parasite, okay, which is these castle-dwelling Eurofags. It's not just technically Jews. These are the Hofjuden, the court Jews of Europe, who have intermixed the barons and princes and jolly good countess, right? They have little to no interest in Kabbalah or Talmud or even entering a synagogue, but they consider themselves ethnically Jewish. They may consider themselves religiously Christian. You do know that Lord Rothschild, Lord Jacob Rothschild, had a Christian Bible. They are all actually avid readers of Carl Gustav Jung, and you could say the lodge, they're in the Illuminized lodge, but they don't attend lodge. These people are beyond forms. They don't attend, they may attend church and things. These are universalists. They believe there's a force. They believe that human beings are, elements of the Godhead, and human beings are little gods, and God's going to grant them the power of gods through genetic engineering and AI and so on to grow godlike. And I'm telling you their religion. Are you ready? I've said it before. We're going to say it again. It's UFO theology. They believe that God, when you read your Old Testament Tanakh Bible, were made in the image of God, which is a highly advanced humanoid life form who seeded the earth with life. And they're watching over us. They visit from time to time. And they are now going to watch us as we develop and guide us so that we become good little Universalist Lodge members who read our Carl Gustav Jung books. And Carl Gustav Jung would not approve of what they're doing. That's a Swiss psychoanalyst, if you didn't know. I could talk about him for hours. I'll argue anyone on Jung, anyone. I read his collected works 3 times. I was reading Jung at 21. Knew it back to front. Dream work, so I've done it all. I went through the whole New Age bullshit till I came back to the church. But I still have all that knowledge, and that was my synchronistic divine providence, so I could understand them. These people are intellectuals. If you were to sit down with them like a Madeleine Albright, remember when she said, is it worth 600,000 Iraqi children to die, Madeleine Albright? She said, yes. It's unfortunate, but yes, they must die so that democracy may live. You understand, these people are wonderful, kind. If you went to their house, you would have tea, you would be served delicious biscuits, maybe a cucumber sandwich, game of cricket, old boy. Perfectly nice, reasonable people. Just one problem. Without an effort in the world, say, well, it's unfortunate, but we shall have to invade Iraq. We'll get the dumb fucking Americans to do it for us. They'll believe any shit we tell them via the Council on Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission, Atlantic Council, Carnegie Institute, Rockefeller Foundation, and we'll get the dumb fucking Americans to slaughter as many Arabs. It's unfortunate, of course, but one cannot create a new Federated States of Greater Israel without breaking a few eggs to make a delicious New World Order omelette. Very unfortunate. Now, off for a game of cricket, chaps. Jolly good, tally ho. And of course, they're also in their Eurofag castles in fucking Europe. France, Germany, Netherlands, Sweden, Switzerland, and all the rest. And they want to kill us all, basically. It's nothing personal. It's just you have to be managed. You're clearly slaves. I mean, we tell you what we're doing, and you just sit there and jerk off online, so you're proving yourselves completely slave-like, obviously. So you have to be managed and culled, but it's not personal. God has a hierarchy. There is no democracy in heaven. Okay, there's God, then Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Virgin Mary, and down, or whatever, a similar version within Islam, Jewish Orthodoxy, and down. Okay, and there's an alpha male and an alpha female in a wolf pack. All throughout the animal world, there's an alpha male, alpha female. There's a human king and a human queen, and then there is no democracy in heaven. What is above is also below. That is the that is the system. That's an argument for that. That is the and again we'll go down to the fact that a good video needs to be done, as I always promise a good video, of good old oh my god, sacred tradition, and I've forgotten his name. Are you kidding me, Brandon? Anyway, there's a famous author, who was a famous Steve Bannon loved him, and so did Adolf Hitler. Good old. All right, I'm getting angry. Eat your heart out, Apple. Julius Evola, that's who I was looking for. Let's get him up. Julius Evola. It's all in real time, baby. Julius Evola. The traditional sacred king was himself of a divine nature, and the gods were his peers. He was, like them, of celestial stock. He had the same blood as they. He was thus a center, an affirmative, free, and cosmic principle. Anyway, the traditional say you got to read Julius Evola, had a friend, a Hungarian fascist, and I still miss him. Tarquin was, as he said, I am a national socialist and student of Julius Evola. I am not a Hitler groupie. And he was one of the more evolved intellectual European white nationalists, but he had no problem with Africa. He said, look, Africa for the Africans, blah, 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 blah. I don't care. And I sort of contrast everyone with him. You could sit down and have a conversation, and he and Sufjan became very good friends. And Sufjan was looking for a visa to Mexico and then hopefully get to the US. And I said, Sufjan, if you keep talking Hitler with Tarquin, I guarantee you are not getting a fucking visa. And he just kept doing it, thinking it was funny. And that's why I cut off from both of them. I had enough. I said, respect what I'm about. We are being watched, if you haven't fucking noticed. And I think, as though intellectual debates about Hitler are fine by me, it's not a good look. You need to stay focused on the principles. And that's why I said I've had enough, Sufjan. I still respect them both. They were highly intellectual, very smart, multiple languages, and were really a blessing to my knowledge base. But in the end, if people are not going to respect what I ask, which, as I said, I don't want to discuss Hitler in those terms, in any glowing terms at all. I just want to talk about Israel, high technology. Why don't we stay focused on that? Try getting people to do that. Good luck. But this is what I mean. But Julius Evola, a sacred tradition, said the same thing, that there is a master class, that there is a ruling class, Plato's Republic. There is a managerial class. Now tell me you don't believe that's true. This is where I fight and struggle, because I have friends who are just interested in pussy, women, fucking women, and cars. That's all they talk about all day. Love the guy. He's fucking hilarious. Great photographer. He got me into video editing, so it's all his fault, the Doba. And all he's interested in is pussy. Chicks, hot women's, in his 50s now. It's like, dude, are you ever retiring? He says, nah. And when I'm in my wheelchair, I'll be pinching the ass of the nurse. I said, yeah, you probably will be. And yet, he doesn't really have any interest in politics. I could not get that guy to give a shit about politics. And yet, he was one of the most helpful people to me as a long friend of 20 plus years. Yet but he's just not interested until it affects him on something, an issue that's affecting his work. Then he becomes, but he's not interested. He's interested in hot chicks, titties, and fast cars. That's it. And photography. He's not interested in anything else. And I could give you a whole swathe of a group of people who, even if they are mildly politically interested, will never move, will never act, and are completely, large sections of the community, I'd say 70% are literally completely disinterested in politics. Literally completely disinterested, and maybe 25% of those may become interested if it starts directly affecting them. Because unfortunately, when life becomes too easy and everything's handed to you, and the coffee's on the shelf and the milk's on the shelves and the bread's on the shelves, if you haven't suffered, it doesn't hit home. The power's on, everything's fine, everything's working. Sometimes you have to lose everything before you value it. Just as I lost my liberty and was thrown in jail for 3 years and nearly fucking killed, before I realized the value of liberty, the American flag and the American Constitution and Bill of Rights. Then I became an absolute fucking fanatic about freedom and the US Constitution and the Bill of Rights. I'm not here because I like Americans or country music, though I do love country music. I know it's embarrassing, but I do. And I'm not here for that. And I still haven't seen the final episode of Dynasty, Who Shot JR, after all these many decades. And I thought, bound to find it online, but I can't find it online, not even on a torrent. But I'm here because I know the only thing between me and a long, slow, multi-generational death and slow and introduced sterility and beautiful smart cities, which will fuck us all. The only thing standing between that is a strong US military intelligence community that are actually going to follow the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. And I realize it's a complicated process, and I realize it's easy to be a YouTube douchebag mouthing off. A bit different when you're dealing with nuclear weapons and the subtleties of politics and the great game. I do realize that, but I don't buy that bullshit. The US is the most powerful military in the world. Aircraft carrier battle groups. The US controls everything. The Straits of Malacca. It controls the Straits of Hormuz. It controls the Suez Canal, the Panama Canal. Nothing moves without its permission. It has mapped every millimeter of the earth. It knows who's fighting, when, where, and why. And yet, amazingly, it has to play these stupid games. It can't just rid the fucking parasite from this face of the earth. It cannot free the European people. It cannot even free the Israeli people, for crying out loud. It cannot free anyone from this fucking parasite. It cannot get the fucking slithering snake parasite out of the synagogues, out of the churches, out of the mosques, out of the Anglican Church, the Catholic Church. It can't get them out of the government institutions. It can't get this snake, this viper out, because it is so corrupt and backdoored itself. So it has to do deals. And until we face a rather large question, of which very few percentage of the population, except perhaps you who are watching this, are going to consider, is, do we need to separate out into two basic groups? One who wants to be a slave, considers it normal to be told what to do by unelected officials, pedophile bishops and mullahs and rabbis and grand rabbis. And then there are us who say, no, see, I don't have a problem living within Sharia law because I don't drink anymore. I don't party. I'm 55. I hate young people making noise. I hate people who squeal their wheels in their V8. Not that I ever did that when I was 18, 19, 20 in my XC Falcon 351. Yes, I did, with my Holly double pumpers. I was a fucking idiot when I was young. But let's not talk about that. Let's talk about the fact that I'm an angry old man and I fucking hate teenagers and loud people. I fit right in, whether it's Sharia law in Iran or Sharia law in Saudi. I'd fit right in because I'm 55, I'm boring, and I demand to be bored till I die. The problem why I can't fit into those oligarchical, patriarchal, full of nepotism societies is they're so fucking corrupt. I demand the ability to remove corrupt officials. And that's the problem with this sacred tradition bullshit. You need a benevolent king and queen who's going to be wonderful. And if you can tell me the last time that happened, good fucking luck. All we have is this thing called democracy or the limited republic, the imperfect mechanism, which in fact is kind of perfect. It's the fact that you've got fat, lazy fucking slobs that don't value anything till they lose it. However, we're at the point now that when we lose it forever. I mean, that's impossible, of course, because you can't go against the will of God. People will always be free. The only question is how many die to get the freedom back. That's the only question. But we're at a point now where very tiny groups of people, and you remember what Bibi said, there's a problem. There's not that many Jews in the world. Remember? I've got to get the damn quote. I've got the video. I've got to just get it quoted and I'll put it online as a short. There's not that many Jews in the world. Which is why they're desperately trying to what? Automate systems. They're trying to automate every system imaginable, from policing to the military to the courts to everything. Then a very small group of people can control a very large group of people, put them into smart cities, smother them with crises and terror and anxiety until they submit fully, willingly to the UN Smart City program. Then slowly, over 3, 4, 5 generations, like the Amalekites, their memory will be wiped from the face of the earth. This is not just a, quote, Jewish thing. This is an elite thing. And they just happen to all think they're ethnic Jews related to King David. They are nothing but pieces of vile shit. And if every Jew, whatever a Jew is, disappeared in a puff of Auschwitz smoke, I promise you, this program will continue. So, after burying the lead, let's look at what's in our face. The Swiss Hells Angels at the Whaling World. Wow, he was probably in banking. Same people, Chabad, are in the White House, and it's all sides. They're with Mandami. I mean, we know it's a fraud, and they're losing this narrative. We've got Nachum Goldberg, another Chabad Hasidim. There he is laundering $170 million in drug money because he's so pious, but he can do whatever he likes to Goy, and they do it to their own. The chief rabbi of Russia, Beryl Lazar, hanging out at the Oxford Union with none other than Nathaniel Rothschild. Okay, we can take a lot from that, can't we? And gentlemen motorcycle clubs that Kay Griggs warned us about. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I guess we can all stay online and keep giving me money, please do. I have drones to pay for. Lee finally got his drone, and it was great to catch up with him in Mexico City. Yeah, I will get around to making these. Well, Mary got this one done up, sent it with that and the hat. Cyber is a real domain of power. We will get them done up. I will sell swag too. I'm just doing what I can do, and you know, if you're not religiously inclined, good luck. But if you are, know that nothing goes against the will of God. It is soon to be the 25th of December in the most pagan religion in the world, Christianity, with a one God outside time and space, unknowable. How do you know the infinite Godhead? But when it incarnates into the world, according to the teachings which I believe, it turns into the Holy Spirit, it turns into Christ. But of course, we have other complications, as the Psalms of David and, Proverbs say, wisdom, she sits by the gates, and wisdom and the Holy Spirit is always referred to in the feminine. And it's an interesting time to interpret. And of course, I seriously want to start my own religion because I ain't happy with the Catholic Church. Obviously, they have like all churches, all organized religion, become servants of the state. They keep the people down, tell them to remain calm, and wait for Jesus to come wipe their ass. What a great way for a globalist communist system to take control of the dumb idiots. It's really diabolically simple, but diabolically clever all at the same time. Evgeny Primakov, eat your heart out. Sorry, and also good old Yuri Andropov, of course, head of the KGB, one of Putin's heroes. But look, on the 25th, and we can debate whether he was really born on that day or not, but you know, love is a fulfillment of the law. No one should have a problem with Jesus. I don't care if you're a communist. And I knew communists that loved Jesus. They believed he was a revolutionary out to make sure the workers were paid their due wages, the orphans were looked after, as well as the widows. That love is the fulfillment of the law. And as the Jewish Old Testament, the Tanakh says, even the alien amongst you, the illegal alien, or the alien, meaning the non-Jew, is equal before you in the law. There's many, many good things in the Jewish Old Testament Tanakh. That was an original 3,000 to 5,000 year old founding document at a time when having sex with your brothers and sisters and your mum and dad, and sex with sheep and goats, literally, at a time when sacrificing babies to Moloch was completely normal. It came along and set up an institute of laws which were definitely in those times utterly and totally righteous. There's a whole context to that book, even with all the horrible violence. Remember, God out there does not change. God outside time and space never changes. However, our understanding of God, as we become conscious of God, as we incarnate the quantum field, as we understand and attain higher and higher consciousness, and of course we need to catch up on the ethics and morals as we are granted godlike powers going into the future. It's a very interesting time. It's not going to end with the coming of Christ. There is more to come. And the sooner we all start thinking for ourselves, the better. Talk again real soon. Whoever you are, whether you're a communist, an atheist, a Muslim, a Jew, love is the fulfillment of the law, and no one should have any problem with that. Talk again soon.